America's White Table.
It was just a little white table, but it brought tears of bright to my Uncle John's eyes. The Veterans Day he came for dinner and stood by it, except for one person, even though nobody would be eating dinner.
It was just a little white table, but earlier that day, Mama had told Gretchen Smith and me the little white table that we set for Veterans Day was just like the one that had stood across America in the dining halls of the Army, the Navy, the Marine Corps, and the Air Force since the Vietnam War.
The tables honored the men and women who served in America's armed forces, especially those missing in action, our MIAs, and those held prisoners of war, our POWs. It was just a little white table, but it felt as big as America. When we helped Mama put each item on it, and she told us why it was so important. We used a small table of girls, she explained first, to show one soldier's lonely battle against many. We covered it with a white cloth to honor a soldier's pure heart when he answered his country call to duty. We placed a lemon slice and grains of salt on a plate to show a captive soldier's bitter fate and the tears of families waiting for loved ones to return, she continued. We pushed an empty chair to the table for the missing soldiers who were not here. We lay a black napkin for the sorrow of captivity and turn over a glass for the meal that wouldn't been eaten, she said. We place a white candle for peace and finally a red rose in a vase tied with a red ribbon for the hope that all our missing will return someday. Mama finished speaking just as the sunlight spilled on the table and filled up overturned glass. It was just a light table, but it suddenly made me want to burst with the feeling I couldn't explain. When Mama told us how much our setting the light table would mean to Uncle John that night. Then she told us something we didn't know. Our Uncle John, who gave us big bear hugs and stung us with air punch drills and called me the Katy girl, was a POW in the Vietnam before we were born. Period.
It was just a little white table, but it gave us the courage to ask Mama what happened to Uncle John in Vietnam. He quietly told us his story.
When Uncle John served in the Vietnam, he was sent on a rescue mission and his helicopter was shot down behind enemy lines, she began.
And he and his 3 crew members were taken prisoner. One crew member named Mike had serious wounds from the crash, but Uncle John and the other men tried to help Mike get better and persuaded a guard to bring him medicine. Then one day, when a guard looked away, Uncle John and the others had a chance to escape, but Mike was still too sick to go. So Uncle John stayed behind because he wouldn't leave a fellow soldier alone so far from home.
But how did Uncle John get free? We asked Mama. Sometime later, Uncle John had a chance to escape again, and somehow he was able to take Mike with him, carrying him on his back, and collecting just enough rainwater and big leaves to keep them alive until Uncle John found an American infantry unit to help them. But even though Uncle John did everything he could to bring Mike home alive, Mike's wounds were just too serious and he died before the rescue helicopter landed.
I know that Mike was only 20 years old and dreamed of playing football, but he loved America enough to give his life for his country when duty called. And I know how much Uncle John loves America too, but he learned when helping Mike that a soldier risked his life for a fellow soldier because the best of your country lives in every man and woman who would lay down their life for you too.
It was just a little white table, but it needed words of gratitude like Mama's Thanksgiving meal. Before Uncle John arrived for dinner, Gretchen and Samantha Ann decided to put 3 gifts of our own on the table to honor our veterans. Gretchen colored pictures of all the objects on the table, and Samantha wrote out the words of my country, 'tis of thee, as a tribute in songs, but I didn't know what I, a 10-year-old girl, could ever put on the table that was as important as each veteran's gift of freedom.
It was just a little white table, but I looked at it all dinner long, and in the quiet inside me, I could almost hear the silent soldiers of the empty chairs say,
Remember us, please. We are real people like your Uncle John and Mike, who have families and friends, homes and dreams of our own, to protect your birthright of liberty from disappearing as easily as sunlight from a glass. It was just a little white table, but it took my words away when I hugged Uncle John goodnight and wanted to thank him for serving our country so bravely. So I just hugged him even harder and told him I loved him. Uncle John hugged me back even harder than I hugged him. And that's when I knew what I could put on the table. My promise to put the words from my heart into a little book about America's white table. And in the book, I'd use Gretchen's pictures and Samantha's son and Mama's story about Uncle John and his friend Mike, because I hoped that everyone who read it would set a white table on Veterans Day too. So the brave Americans, the little table honors, won't ever feel forgotten by the country they love so much. Then in the salt on the little white table, I traced in the grains of their family sins what each man and woman who serves America is to me, a hero. And that's when I saw the tears of pride fill my Uncle John. Thank you, veterans.